The title of this panel is Innovate or Die. And, well, I mean, you know, a lot of us, we run large corporations. I mean, I do run UNIT.City, and do I think that someone is going to disrupt me? And then one day I have a guy called Adam Newman who comes around and he creates WeWork. And you're like, hold on a second. That guy is creating a real estate company, but turn it into a tech company and raising billions and want to disrupt the real estate business. Or I have a cool company called, let's say, MySpace. Maybe some of you remember MySpace. It was a thing, or Friendster, right? And then there's a guy called Mark Zuckerberg who arrives and say, not cool. I'm going to create Facebook, and you guys are going to be done. Or are different from Google, who were on that stage previously, and they arrive and say, you know what, Yahoo? Not so cool, Yahoo. Let's kill them. And boom, guess what? Yahoo is dead. So the question we're going to try to answer is, as a large corporation, do we have to innovate? And is or are startup right around the corner ready to kill us? And how do we work with those guys? How do we innovate with those guys? How do we bring them in? Should we buy them? Should we work with them? Should we do pilot with them? And to answer that great question, I want to welcome on stage my panelists. And I will start with our good friend from California, Rick Rasmussen. Please, round of applause for Rick. Rick is an industry fellow at UC Berkeley, and actually is helping us a lot on building UNIT.City and our ecosystem. Rick, welcome, please. Then I want to welcome our also dear friend and actually client of Sector X, so thank you, Petro Chernyshov, who is a supervisory board member of Farmak. Petro, welcome. And actually, we do really cool thing with Farmak. We help them invest in startups. So not only work in startup, but also invest in startup. And we have a few cool projects together. And it's, I have to say, it's a lot of fun. And it's an honor to have you here, sir. Well, then we had to invite a small startup that is a little bit disrupting, you know, kind of. Please welcome our dear friend Nikita Kharchenko, who is actually Startup Business Development Manager at Amazon Web Services. Nikita, good to have you. And then, well, you know, I mean, some people invest in startup as well, because for them to grow, you have to invest in them. And that's what Bernhard Friedl is doing. He's a co-founder and partner of Nextcorpo. Please. And then, of course, we have a big startup. We needed to have a smaller one. We actually started almost at UNIT.City, coached by Rick. Please welcome Oleksiy Shaldenko, CEO and founder of Wantent. Okay, I'm going to throw at you a few numbers, and you're going to tell me if you feel that they're interesting. 84% of executives agree that innovation is important to grow strategy, but only 6% are happy with their innovation strategy. So 84% say, oh, we have to innovate and we have to have a strategy, but 6% are saying, but it doesn't really work. 65% of companies decide actually to wait to have a perfect product before they launch it. And that's from the Harvard Business Review. That is not exactly what you guys do at Amazon, and that's definitely not what you guys do. Like, you have a product, let's launch it and see and iterate, right? 52% of the Fortune 500 companies, and that's the beauty of a tablet, it doesn't really work, have gone bankrupt in the past 20 years. 52% of the 500 companies have gone bankrupt in the past 20 years. So it's not because you're big that you're safe, right? But on the other hand, 90% of startups have failed. So it's not because you're small that you're going to succeed. So basically, do we have to innovate, or are we all dead anyway? And this is just a very scary panel. And I'm going to ask, and start with you, Rick. What is your definition of corporate innovation? Actually, is it just a buzzword or a reality?
Definition of corporate innovation is to take your company and to think about the future state. Corporate innovation is not just centered on product. It's about the face you present to the customer, all the things you do in the name of the customer, but also all the things that you can do internally to be more efficient. Supply chain, improving your supply chain, improving your profitability in any way, shape, or form. All those things are corporate innovation, and every company should be engaged in some form of innovation somewhere along the line. There's a famous book by Larry Keeley called The 10 Types of Innovation, where he lays out all these different things that companies can be doing. So even though 16%, your survey said 84% of companies believe they need to innovate, even the 16% that don't believe it are innovating, they don't even know it.
Cool. What is your vision at Farmak?
Okay, Farmak is a generic pharmaceutical company, and generic company is by definition is not about innovation. It's about repeating something that somebody did before. So innovation in Farmak, perhaps it's one of these 10 types of innovations that you mentioned. It's operational efficiency. That's type of innovation that we have to do. But every company wants to innovate and do something big, and Farmak is trying to do this by investing into interesting companies that coming on side. I mean, companies that are doing medical tech, medtech, companies that are developing some new pharmaceutical treatments not in Ukraine. And by talking to those companies, by investing in those companies, by learning from these companies, that's our definition of innovation in Farmak.
So, and Nikita, this question is going to be for you. I think everybody know Amazon, and then one day Amazon decided that, there's something cool, we're good in tech, let's sell our tech to other people, and it's Amazon Web Services, which brings, I don't know, 40% or 30% of the revenue of Amazon and keep growing and growing. So basically at Amazon, you're disrupting yourself and you're creating small startup within the company. How does it work? How do you keep innovating? Because sorry, but you're big. Like you're going to be soon the first employer in the United States, if not in the world. More than 1 million people work from Amazon, right? Something like that.
I would say, Dominique, from my personal point of view, because Amazon was sold to me as a company, to me like a person who is major part of my life was an entrepreneur, was sold like in the following phrase: Nikita, you are absolutely unemployable person. You will never have a chance to work in the enterprises, except try to do it in Amazon. What I would like to tell you, I'm working in Amazon Web Service more than a year. It is very unique about this company that it, I would say, tries and succeeds to do two very separate things: to be an efficient corporate, but to give the space for innovation, for day one culture, like we call it and discuss it, where you will always have an opportunity to big think and to execute think and to do not only the things which are reasonable and I would say make an input to your EBITDA, but the things which could open the gates and which could bring the value to the customer. That's amazing, I would say. And yes, it is from a methodological part of view, this is the 12 principles of Amazon, which is the company is built on, and yes, this is the manner of management and the kind of culture inside the company.
So and we'll come back to this, but to you, company culture is something that is a key component of corporate innovation. If the company culture allows it, then it's possible, and if the company culture doesn't allow it, it's dead.
The short answer is yes. It's all about the culture.
Bernhard, you are an entrepreneur, and then you also are an investor in startup, and you're a very hands-on investor. Like when you invest in a company, you really take care of the company. What do you tell your startup when they say, "Oh, we want to sign a big contract with Daimler or Farmak"? Are you like, "Ooh, guys, careful, they're going to kill you," or "No, you should go, and this is how you're going to work with them"? So what is your approach with your entrepreneurs?
Well, I think it depends on how much does that customer then influence the company, and how much is the company willing to be influenced by the customer. Yes, of course, if you sign one very big contract, you will be very dependent, and that will influence you, and it might actually kill your entrepreneurial culture if you don't watch out for it. Yes, I'm a fan of many small contracts. It's much more sustainable for the company, and it keeps the internal company spirit alive in the sense how it was created. Yes, so from that perspective, yes, we see it because we go into the companies for a very long time before we even invest. We make sure that they are ready for what they have to face. And from my time as when I was an executive, when I was running a rather large company at that point, I know how much you can be influenced by key customers and how much pressure they can put on you. So I'm not a big fan of them. They are very nice, but this is a very low-hanging fruit, but I think it's a bit poisoned.
Yeah, I remember when I had my company, when one of my clients was more than 65% of my revenue, I was like, "Ooh, this is becoming dangerous. Let's try to find new clients and diversify." And please, guys, jump in, comment to each other. I mean, it's I love being the boss of this space, but please, Oleksiy. So, I mean, we had that conversation already, and but maybe actually you can start by. Because, okay, Amazon Web Services, we know what you do. Farmak, you know what you do. You see Berkeley. But Oleksiy, what do you do? What is your startup about? And by the way, you changed name.
Yeah. Hello.
Good choice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before we named like Watched, but now it's Wantent. What we do, it's our product is AI powered platform for for conducting remote research, and we analyze virus reactions using AI models. We help video content producers and distributors to determine their target audience reactions, and the product is a platform for conducting remote research. And what's about innovations, we are innovations. We can try everything what we want, and every time when, for example, Dominique meets me, he asks me like, "Okay, how are you?" I'm so tired, and it's all about the result of every day trying. We have searched LinkedIn, a lot of pitchings, but in the team, we have this culture of open to all of the ideas, and the advantage is that we can try and test it, and it's amazing. We don't have these big processes and discussions. We can just test it.
And how does it work with your client? I mean, do you have? How does it work?
Well, sometimes.
Okay, give us a concrete example of something that works, and if you have one, an example of something that really didn't work.
I will we have two types of clients that open to innovations, and they're like, okay, aggressively no. And for example, also we can divide it into types. It's local B2B corporations and international. International, they are more open, but and it's sometimes, for example, we have a good case with 1+1 Digital. They created a TV show for teenagers, and they don't know anything about their audience. And we help them to understand how this content will be pursued and also what they need to change. And we created a lot of, we provide them a lot of recommendations, and they were open to this information, and it was not like restrict, like, why we should believe you, or okay, this tool can help us. But for example, also in another way, for example, one big company, I won't name it, but for example, we spent 4 months working with them, signing NDA. 1 month. For 1 month, we can make 2 increments of our product, but for 1 month for them is okay, signing NDA. After that, 3 months, we have a lot of calls, meetings, value proposition, define value proposition, and then okay, we agreed that we have paid pilot, and everything, like our lawyers prepared contract, okay, everything is like clear, okay. Kind of on the same page, but in the last moment they ask us, okay, we need to, we discussed inside internal, we have internal discussion and decides that we need to be sure, should we invest our resources in this solution? So could you please provide us free pilot? For me, it was like, I was surprised, and for me, it's no. We work with B2B companies, like only on paid pilots, and at that moment, for me, it was like respect to myself, for my team, and it was. I told them we can do it with paid pilots, or we don't work together anymore. And
Petro, I think you want to comment on that.
I maybe want to add maybe slightly unusual perspective. I'm talking here having a hat on me of a big company, of course, Ukraine big company, not well, no. I'm sitting nearby Amazon, and I'm a much smaller company. Okay, in Ukraine we are very big, and I want to say that innovation for a big company, it's a two-way street. One way is that we invest in a company and we try to help them to build better products by using our expertise, because obviously we have a lot of knowledge about what they're building. But it's another way that I like very much. My job as a supervisory board member is to introduce startup, agile, lean, very quick ways of thinking into very big company. And of course, all the big companies, they are slightly old school. They have this stodgy, slow type of thinking. And when we meet the top founders, their staff, and when people in Farmak sees how quickly they make a decision, how quickly they pivot the products, how quickly they change the direction. And one day I hear in my big company managers say, maybe we should do the same. Remember how those people in these startups that we invested into, how quickly they changed their direction, how quickly they decided to buy this thing, to try this thing, to launch a small, I don't know, advertising on Google, it didn't work. Launch another advertising, launch another project. And I think that it's super important that a big company also learns from startup and changes the corporate culture. Perhaps you as a member of academia can add your own perspective on this.
Well, and Rick is not only a member of academia because he had a corporate life, he had a startup life. So Rick, what is your take on this?
Just to mention, so the corporate life, born and raised in Silicon Valley, I went into the semiconductor industry. The first 3 companies I was part of, I was very fortunate, but each of them started from zero, got profitable, we took them public, pretty successful, sold each for a collective $12 billion. And so that was my corporate world. But then I got to become...
That's Silicon Valley, guys. Don't laugh. Yeah, that's Silicon Valley.
People would say, only 12 billion?
12 billion? Failure.
Then I became a venture capitalist. Now I have the best job in the world, which is to teach. So that's what I enjoy in giving back. So this whole idea about culture and the impedance match, the difference between the speed of a large corporation, their processes, the procedures that you go through, the policies, the non-disclosures, the legal department, the HR department, all these things that weigh down these large corporations versus a startup that has none of those. Zoom, 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 zoom. We have to change. We have to do this. We have to be super flexible. Can I play professor for a second?
Please.
All right. So
I love it when Rick plays professor for a second.
Thank you. So back in the day, there was no such thing about cooperation between large companies and startups. Now we call it closed innovation. This was the large companies that each had their own big internal R&D labs. Think IBM, think AT&T, think General Motors, think Ford. They hired engineers, usually master's degrees or doctorates right out of school. They would come into the lab. They would try to think big thoughts. They would work on 10-year plans. They would work on their research. And eventually, maybe that made its way into actual product lines. Closed innovation. About 15, 20 years ago, the idea of open innovation, to actually start using other parties to help with this process. And other parties initially meant partnerships back and forth, but over time, corporations have started to realize the value of working with startups. Open innovation. So you hear that as a buzzword everywhere. So what we're talking about here really is a panel, because we're focusing on this partnership between startups and corporations, is that whole process of open innovation. Open innovation is not the easiest thing in the world. It takes the proper large company with the right mindset and the right procedures to be able to understand what it is they need, to then go out and scout the world, scout all the startups that maybe can fulfill some or all of that need that they have. Once they identify, then work with those startups on this partnership stuff, like Oleksiy is talking about.
Okay, if you play professor, can I play
Yes,
a
sir.
student for a moment?
Yes. Great.
As a student, I'd like to ask, what's two typical biggest stupid mistakes that biggest corporations are doing when they are working with startups?
The stupid things. One is to set up an independent, totally separate innovation lab off on one side. This innovation lab is responsible for working with startups, getting things going, little pilot projects, but those projects never make their way back into the large corporation. So innovation is an island. It is not part of the overall corporate culture. It's just something that the CEO said one day, hey, we need to be innovative. We're going to set up a lab. You people go work with startups and find new things. It's a waste of time for the corporation, and it's a waste of time for the startups.
Okay, that's one big stupid mistake.
But that was a good story.
Can I add a second?
Yes, and then I think Bernhard has a few ones, and then Nikita has a few bad things to do.
Okay, I think one of the biggest mistakes is that this investing into startup, helping startup to grow, when it's not sold to company owner, when it's going on a lower scale in a big corporation, it's not gonna work. So the company owner, or at least CEO, has to be sold on this thing. Otherwise, it's simply not working.
Bernhard.
Yeah, I think it has to be in the culture of the company. If the CEO sets up this lab, it's an alibi. Yes, it's like we also do innovation. Look, we have this fancy lab over there. It's not ingrained in the corporation at all.
We call it innovation theater.
Yeah. Yes, it's like me too. Yes, I have one too.
I'm going to talk to the press and show and impress them on how innovative I am.
Yes,
Look at my lab.
It's the alibi. Yes, I have it. I thought about it, so we can check it. It will do nothing. That's why they will have to go out if they get real innovation and will have to buy something.
Nikita, do you want to comment on that?
Trying to step in to be a professor also. What mistakes are observable here? I had several talks with the corporate innovation managers who are making with plenty of pilots, I would say, but not only pilots, not only commercial paid pilots, Oleksiy, but also merger and acquisition deals. And it looks like so attractive. You see success, merger and acquisition, what a great story. But in fact, corporates, enterprises, they consider merger and acquisition deals usually, and it's kind of a mistake from my point of view, as a way of hiring. It's not about, innovation. It's about the way how to avoid with regular headhunting recruiting system of corporate, which is very usual, strict, and which is very, I would say, resistant to very unordinary thinking people, and to let these people inside the company. So just to buy the company when they are small. But in fact, it was a good story about the culture injection when the startup came to the enterprise, and just showing the way how speedy they are. People working in the enterprise begin to look at them and try to be the same somehow. But in fact, this kind of merger and acquisition, they don't, I would say, bring neither innovations and neither people. In half of a year, in a year, the entrepreneurs, they go out of these companies because the culture is not ready to adopt. There is no space to do big things in a great speed, I would say.
Oleksiy, I mean, if tomorrow Amazon, who is the third producer of online content in the world, probably after, I would say, Disney and probably Netflix, comes to you and say, wow, this is cool, what you're doing. You can predict how people are going to react to my content. If they come to you, and actually, if I was Amazon, I would come to you and try to buy you now because you're not yet too expensive. How would you react?
I would say that we are in the process.
You are in the process. Okay, press around? No? Wow, that's news. Too bad I didn't invest earlier in you.
But no comments like. But
okay.
For example, if Netflix or Disney, for me, I have, for example, 10 years ago, I have a dream work in Disney Research in Zurich. 3 years ago, I thought, they are my competitors. Now I think that they need to be my client. And I'm prepared for them, and my team prepared. And for us, we will choose this A client. We would will be excited. We'll be excited for sure. But for us, it's.
But the client. But if they come to you and say, "No, we want to acquire you."
Acquire. It's one of the exits, opportunities.
But that would be about the money.
Yes.
But what about
values?
Yeah, or coming and joining Disney and working for Disney and maybe seeing your product being killed, or I don't know.
Technology. For me, it's very important to be independent, and we try to do our best that we, for example, when we'll have this opportunity, we'll be kind of on the same level. But also, it's very important that for big corporations can be also aggressive and make pressure on us, or even by our competitors. So it's also very important to be smart on all of the decisions.
Petro, do you acquire startup?
No.
No.
We don't want to acquire as a startup because we are not ready. We have completely different culture. I believe that if we now acquire control of a startup, we may even kill this startup. So it's out of question.
There's a good chance, but. Nikita, one of the things that Amazon Web Services actually is doing, you guys work a lot with startups and you support and you help them grow with expertise, knowledge, access to your services, the cloud. Actually, you're partner of the Nest Bootcamp, and thank you for that, and thank you for the support Amazon gives us at UNIT.City to grow our ecosystem. How does it work, and why do you do this? Is this just okay? We're gonna help those startups, and one of them is gonna become a big client one day, or why do you do that?
There are some evident answers and not evident, I would say. The evident answer is, yes, we are somehow working in this venture market model. What does it mean? In this innovation world, I would say, major part of the startups will die, but one will become very big. And nobody knows for sure who will be the next big thing. So AWS, both with venture capital funds, with accelerators, with such an ecosystem players like UNIT.City, investing in the startups, investing grants, I would say, credits, which allow them to grow their products in cloud for free, invest in time with expertise, tech-savvy, business-savvy, because if talk about such a rude thing like ROI, revenue on investment, someday only one startup who will grow in the cloud, it will be the success which will cover all these investments. But there is also some non-evident part, and the thing we like to do in last 3 years. It is both about enterprises who try to innovate, who innovate in-house and using open innovations, and who try even to change the industry, become the industry leader. And here we have I would say, a special program which we call AWS Connections, which is working from 2019. And yes, Dominique, yes, colleagues, this is some kind of a Tinder for startups and enterprises. And this is non-evident thing which helps us to matchmake the exact startups we know with the enterprises who are ready to innovate, want to innovate, and are ready to adopt these startups to, I would say, to win both, to help enterprises to innovate through startups and to help startups to grow more aggressively, to speed up their go-to-market pace, I would say.
Oleksiy, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, and I also want to say that it's very good strategy. For example, we have experience. Everything on our platform was built on Microsoft, for example. But 2 years ago, after a conference, your salesman asked us, "Okay, do you want to try it? We have credits. We have activate program." And from we wrote to Microsoft, "Okay, somebody try to help us and provide us with credits. Do you have any programs for us?" They said, "No, we can support only startups on the seed round with more than $200,000." Okay, we said okay, and after that we go with AWS. And now for 2 years we built all our solution on AWS, and with this support credits, it helps us to grow. And we can rely on this help of big corporation. And I know for sure that we are promoters. For example, all my colleagues from other startups, I always recommend AWS, for example. It's a very good strategy.
So it's a good way. Bernhard, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it actually just shows that even a company like Microsoft has become slow because they cannot support that. Amazon has programs to entice them. And I think it's a very smart move because what used to be the operating system of your PC is today the cloud infrastructure, yes? And to whichever cloud infrastructure you marry yourself, you will stay married there because your cost of changing will be too high.
Petro?
I would add to this that, in my view, companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and similar very big companies are already long ago managed by legal and financial people, not by commercial people. And when such a company comes to small startup and says, "We are here to help you grow," I would feel in danger.
Okay.
I have a case.
Yes.
I would say this could be true. But I have a very fresh case which is corresponding to the topic you raised now. One of the startups, I even write down the name. Its name is Agenta. This is the startup about artificial intelligence startups, which platform helps to read the live status of the health of the of the man or woman or of the human using different IoT sensors. And this startup got the contract with NASA due to this AWS Connections program. And the CEO of this company told afterwards when they won this contract, having Amazon Web Services like a big brother is not so scary. It could bring value.
There you go. Rick, do you want to add anything on that?
It is, well, first off, the whole idea about what happens with a startup when they start to interact with one of these large corporations. Sometimes it's scary. Sometimes you get acquired. Sometimes they hire you just for the people and then do it. By the way, that's called an acqui-hire. So you acquire somebody really just for the people and you squash the product and you run off. Google's been famous for that.
A lot of Silicon Valley companies are famous for that.
Acqui-hire. So how do you hire the best talent in artificial intelligence or machine learning or something? Oh, there's a startup over there. We'll pay you a lot of money, and then the product goes away and off you go. So in general, the interaction between startups and corporations is always different. It's super challenging, and every single corporation that is actively engaged with looking at startups as a source and inspiration for innovation has their own methodology. And this is, well, you talk about academically, this is the area right now that academic science and business science is looking at, because there is no strong formula. It's all trial and error. And some people have succeeded through trial and error, and some people maybe not so much.
I want to talk about something else, and Oleksiy, you briefly mentioned that before. It's a question of momentum. So, I mean, larger corporations are well known for being slow, being big, having a lot of processes. Startups are fast, or they're known for being faster, quicker, making quicker decisions, being able to pivot, launching their product as an MVP, and we iterate. And so basically what I'm trying to say is, because of the difference of pace of those two type of company, can they meet somewhere? Or basically this will never happen because we're just too different. Who wants to start? Petro, what do you think?
So the exact question is how this whole ecosystem is evolving.
Right, and how can they work together if they're not just going at the same pace?
I think the major rule is to stay on the distance. Don't come too close to this small company, otherwise you risk breaking this company. And don't allow your lawyers and your finance people to come. I mean, they have to stay even on a bigger distance.
Do we have any lawyer or people working in finance in the room? Because
you have to go to the last row.
Yeah, that's the drinks are over there. What is your take on that? I mean, how can they meet in the middle? How do you make them work together? Do you force it? I don't know.
Again, they're always trying to innovate on how to innovate. They're trying to invent new things. If you take a look back, maybe 6-7 years, the big thing was hackathons.
Oh yeah, I remember those hackathons.
Oh man, everybody was doing a hack. Let's hack this weekend. Let's go to a hackathon, and the prize money started off at $500, and then it got to be $5,000, and then it got to be $50,000 to be able to hack something over a weekend. So every major corporation was sponsoring one, and frankly, over a weekend with just some coders, you're not going to invent a whole lot. Experiment. Failure. Okay, let's try corporate accelerators. Let's build an accelerator within our company, and let's go off and interview early stage startups, and let's bring in Oleksiy into, our corporation, our large corporation, and we'll set up some desks for them, and we'll look at them and ask for reports every week and see how well they're innovating. So that's really hard. So that tried and failed. Then it became matchmaking. So this is in vogue right now.
This is what Sector X is doing, so yes. Oh, okay. Wrong idea again?
No, maybe not.
Okay, thank you.
We're in the middle of this experiment to sort of see how well it goes. And
right.
Yeah. So the big one in Silicon Valley is Plug and Play. You may know them. Plug and Play Tech Center.
I do.
Yeah, everybody that's from there is a little jaded. But what they've done is they've set up, it's almost $100 million business right now, where large corporations go to this one place and they've built they've got a library of startups, and these big companies go in and say, we want to see some startups. And so Plug and Play does some matching, and sometimes that works and sometimes not. But the matchmakers make the money.
But what works?
I'd say, well, we talked earlier about this failure rate.
Yeah.
90% of startups fail, 50% of corporations fail over time, those kinds of things. And so we're seeing failure rates and some success rates. So I think we'll continue to innovate on how to innovate. There will never be the magic thing that works all the time, because we're dealing with people and all the risk factors and everything else. So let's keep trying. I mean,
I'm going to tell you a story. In 2001, I was a young kid at that time, and I became head of innovation of BNP Paribas. And it was right after the merger between Paribas and BNP. And the CEO of BNP Paribas, Michel Perrault, who is a guy I admire, and I think he's one of the best banker in Europe, was not very interested in innovation, and he hired me to become head of innovation of the company, and he told me, well, we just had a bubble, so please kill everything. And they called me the killer at the bank for a while. But I stayed 10 years, so I did a good job at killing and then bringing a few things. But Paribas had acquired a really cool company in the US that was starting doing online payments. And they had a small competitor, and they decided to buy not the small competitor. The name of the competitor was PayPal. And so we killed that company, and then PayPal became PayPal. I'm not super proud of that, to be honest. But I was young and fresh.
You can be proud. You were involved in PayPal becoming PayPal.
True, in a way.
In a way, yeah.
Elon Musk is thanking me every day as one of the co-founders of it, and Peter Thiel as well. But seriously, what works?
okay, so a lot of it depends on the needs of the corporation.
Okay.
So the personality of the corporation, and then what sort of startups they need, and so on. Let me give you like 3 examples of corporations.
Please.
That are trying to either tried to innovate or trying to innovate. Remember Nokia back in the day?
Oh yeah, Nokia, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
one of those.
One of those. So everybody had their Nokia phone, the little candy bar in your pocket, easy peasy, off you go. And then one day, Steve Jobs stands up on stage and has one of these with a big screen on it. Uh-oh. So Nokia ends up going into shock. And they were presented with something from the outside, had to innovate or die. They're still around, but they're not really in the cell phone business. That business died. The world's largest by share.
BlackBerry. Remember BlackBerry?
BlackBerry died. So in the corporation, if they're looking for startups to fix something that's a shock, something with a very short-term need where they have to overturn the corporation, that will never work. Example 2, Adobe. So Adobe, you know, the creative software company, and they're still around. They're within walking distance of my home. It was faced, you know, they were providing very large, expensive suites of software for the creative marketplace. Thousands of dollars for an Illustrator license, or any one of the licenses that they had, Premiere and all these other things. But they started being nipped at the heels by all these startups that were doing subscription-based businesses, that were doing brand new ways of offering creative software to the market. That they saw coming. They adopted an innovation plan. It took a couple of years, but they were able to take this server-based software to put it online, to develop payment systems and everything else, and they used a few startups to help that. That's more gradual. You can use partnerships with startups, and you can use open innovation to try to make that happen. So that's short-term and medium-term. Then there are companies that are lined up on long-term innovation. They have an innovation plan. They're They're really bought into this open innovation process. They have these mechanisms to work with software. And in my classes, one of the examples that I use is Amazon.
Yes.
Yeah. So here you have a company with a completely different personality and one that does a better job at interacting with startups, one where the startups have a higher chance of being successful by working with someone like you, and you have a larger chance of being successful by working with startups and continuing to be innovative. Turns out the other example we're kind of debating here is Microsoft. Remember Microsoft, the desktop software company in Windows 98 and everything else?
Yeah.
They've completely changed, but they had a long-term vision and they involved and purchased a lot of startups to be able to do that. So the success metrics have not only to do with how you do it, but also your needs and the type of company that you're going to work with on bringing them in, and how you interact with how you scout for, how you bring them into your ecosystem, and how you engage with the individual startups.
But okay, can we dig a little bit deeper? And I'm going to ask you guys what you think about this. But when I look, for example, at Microsoft, one of the things that happened at Microsoft is a change of CEO, a new vision, a new manager. And Satya Nadella is completely different from Steve Ballmer and definitely completely different from Bill Gates. So how important for you, and Petro, maybe you can, how important for you it is the vision of the management and the alignment of the management on, okay, we have to innovate and this is how we're going to do it. And in many ways, it doesn't matter how we do it. It's just we have to do it and this is our way of doing it.
All right. I have a short answer, and if you want, I can give a longer answer.
It's okay, we have the evening.
But okay, we don't have a lot of time, I see.
No, we don't.
Yeah, but a short answer is, I'm convinced, and I've been CEO in 3 big companies before, and I'm completely convinced that everything, 90% of success or failure in the company is defined by who CEO is. So CEO is #1 reason for success or failure of the company. And we see it in all the countries. And the best way for the company, if it's easy to change a CEO if he or she is not successful. And we see many companies, many CEOs who have a big stake in the company. It's not easy to replace, unfortunately. And obviously, the guy you named, Mr. Ballmer, I think he overstayed his time, and he should have been changed before. And then Microsoft may perhaps became better company even earlier than it did. But anyway, the CEO is a first and foremost reason for company being successful. That's a short answer.
Bernhard, I'm interested in your vision on this because once again, not only you invest in company, but you invest when you see you can become hands-on and really become almost part of the management of the company. How important is the job of the CEO or the management team when you make those decisions to invest?
I think it's critical. It's crucial. It's one of the biggest influences for us to make a decision to invest is we don't necessarily invest in the product, we invest in the team, we invest in the people, we invest how they interact with each other and how they can solve problems, because as innovation has to happen, they might have to pivot tomorrow. They might be in the hospitality business and a pandemic comes around, and then they need to pivot. And if they don't have this team feeling or this problem-solving mentality, then they will not make it. So we base our decision heavily on the people.
Oleksiy, as a CEO and founder of a company, do you feel the pressure?
Yes.
But seriously, how do you keep yourself on, okay, I have to keep innovating, I have to keep inventing, maybe I have to pivot. You just change name. So you make all those decisions all the time.
Yes, every day is something new. It's every time, every call, meeting, it's a challenge, but it's lifestyle. Now I can't even imagine another life, and it's inspired me, and and I try to do all my best to inspire my team, because you don't know anything what is going on the, like, in 1 month how the world changed, or even pandemic. So, and it's very crucial, and it's very hard to, for example, we started working on the project. For example, we have 3 elections in Ukraine. It's mind-blowing. For example, it's after that COVID, and I also want to thank you for Nest. For example, it helped us a lot, and after that it was like the start and push us to try and working with Rick. It was amazing experience that helped us to change our mindset from local perspective to the worldwide. So it's from the business point of view, it's always interesting, because you don't know what is going on for the next day. And from the working with team, it's all you. Like they're your not friends, they're your colleagues, your family, and you care about them, and you can't even imagine that you will lose them. So it's all about respect and inspire them to for next.
To conclude
challenges.
this panel, I would like to ask each of you to give us one recommendation. To give us one recommendation, just one. Your best recommendation to be more innovative. Who wants to start? Yes, Nikita.
I would like to start, and my advice would be to enterprises who are enter with open innovation strategy. These are very 3 concrete things, I would say. Concrete point number 1, please make a sandbox for the startups, which is a very good place to run pilots. There are no or very few legal restrictions. There are no or very few financial restrictions. This is the place for innovations to start. Second point, the pilots should be commercial. They should be paid. All this. This is your investment in the future. And point number 3, all the pilots should. There should be. We call it SLA. Or what exact time enterprise need to give an answer for the startups. Will they make a pilot or not? Because I see the very successful corporate accelerators and innovation departments who took this decision, I would say, to start pilot or not in a month. And now with 4-month discussions, a lot of calls or whatever, we start or not, and with a very clear criteria, what will we consider a successful pilot in the end. That's all.
Petro, your recommendation. And okay, 1. Not 3. Nikita.
Sorry, Dominique.
It's okay.
All right. All right. Okay. Okay.
Okay, 2 if you have to.
All right. So it's one advice, but it's slightly longer than you may think. So all of you here, if you came to this panel, I think most of you dream of becoming a founder or CEO of some startup company. That's my assumption. So my first advice, don't. So if you think that you are smart enough and that's the reason you become a CEO or founder, smartness is not enough. You have to be crazy, you have to be indestructible. But if anyway, even after my advice, you decide to become a founder, to start up of some startup, and later a CEO, first read a book. That's an advice.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes.
Which
And,
one?
Yeah, not any book, of course. I'm not finished yet.
Good.
So, my advice, get a book. It's in English, but there is a translation. The book written by very, very famous person in Silicon Valley, Ben Horowitz, and it's called Hard Things About Hard Things. I'm talking to a lot of people in startups because I'm angel investor and I'm working for Farmak. We also working with startups. And first thing I'm talking to the founders, please read this book. And even after reading this book, you still want to start up a company. You want to be a CEO. Okay, maybe you are crazy enough. Maybe you can sustain this.
Cool. Ben Horowitz, The Hard Things About Hard Things. Actually, it's a really good book. I happen to know Ben fairly well. We share, we love shoes, sneakers. But anyway, that's another story. We'll talk about it later. It's interesting because I was expecting Rick to share a book with us. So what's your recommendation, Rick?
My recommendation for books for startup.
No, a recommendation on anything.
On anything. Okay. So where the panel is corporate innovation.
Right.
So I would say if you're looking at investing in a corporation, in a stock, if you're looking to join a large corporation, if you're looking for good corporate culture, it starts with the board of directors. We're talking here a lot about the CEO, but you want an independent, aggressive board. The board itself is there to basically manage the overall value creation of the company on behalf of the shareholders. So what they're looking at is the price of the stock or how it's doing against its competitors in the marketplace. And if the company is failing, it needs to innovate. Innovate or die.
Yes.
So it's the board, a strong independent board, that then drives the CEO to establish goals for innovation, and the CEO is the one that does it. So innovation really does come from the top down. And so if you want to partner with a company, if you're a startup and want to partner with a company that says, we want to help you out with doing some innovation and stuff like that, think about the board, its long-term vision, make sure that their values are aligned with yours, and the chances are that both parties will be successful. The corporation and the startup will be much stronger.
Bernhard, your recommendation.
Well, if you want to innovate, you need to question everything. You need to be able to say established things are not there just because they are established. They can be questioned, they can be changed, and that can bring the innovation sometimes.
Cool.
My
Oleksiy.
advice, enjoy every minute, hours, all your nights working on your project company, because it's empowering. And
Be passionate.
Be passionate, yes. It's all about it. It's all about people, process, and this interest.
It's time to conclude. Something extremely important happened on August 29. Something nobody thought would happen. The Mississippi River in Belchas changed ways and started flowing the other way. This could happen to anything. Innovate or die. I will leave you with that thought. The Mississippi River can change ways. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of the You Tomorrow Summit, and thank you to our wonderful panel. Thank you.